uyéigaa qunaya kuhih takatyuhan. uyéigaa ye awa ye yanda cage el kallingit dak kallingit ko a de khwa chishugo a uyéigaa de khwa ye ya khwa uyéigaa qunaya kuhih achwe tleidushu gal ka teka winnets ye awa wa gal ya kanda hit ya yidat question kat winnets aqa gaw it ke khatgeti achwe khatse wa ya ach kashuk tlaqayi yudu sago atyata anak khogud ach yid yejne yin dago kak yak e khat utien ko a khosatin uwakaan chitle aya we uwakaan khosatin wal tel uwakaan ach warlun ach tu qadati ach tu yak e has khosatini gwalli seku uwakaan khayel hajir has ati achwe uwakaan qusi qutsati gwal dakhnach qa gwal dech a hanach sati a Wooch has cool ga gwal Wooch to gate you has out at uwakaan aya has to eat with the she which yachye dalli at ye awashin git qusi uwakaan qusti a atina khayati one qanins ben chi shak ati Johan kecha. Let's recap it. What did I talk about? What's uyéigaa? I said qone yak wahih. Do you know that one? Qone yak wahih. Let's make some notes. Hold on. Let's make some notes. No worries, no stress. This is a stress-free environment, even though. Wait, hold on. Okay, so we got some words here we're trying to figure out. Oops, come. So I said tsaatg, which I've also heard as tsaatg, and then I said qone yak wahi. And then I said uyéigaa ye yande cage eight ka dakka koa de khwa chishugo at khwa. So if class is just now getting started at 6:10 is when I started talking, and I said uyéigaa qone yak wahi, what might I be talking about?
Is that part of something that's real on the end, or like, or not? I mean, maybe I'm.
It's probably some sort of like bunch of stuff smashed together, but I've never tried to pull them apart. So class usually starts at 5:30. So if class starts at 6:10, and I said uyéigaa qone yak wahi. It's not gao it. I say it to my kids every morning. Gao it ke hayati. Talk day.
We're late.
We're late. Gao it ke hayati. We're late. And then this is how you make my kids mad if you say this. Lich ich ich ya guk, which is don't be slow. Lich ich ya guk. If I say that to my kids, I'm not slow. They'll get mad at me. What's up, Gao? It would be we're late. So I didn't say we're late. I said uyéigaa qone yak wahi. What else would I have said then? Qone yak wahi.
Is he like the same verb as running?
There is a running, there's a few he verbs. Okay, that's a good question. Let's check out the he verbs real quick. Let's see where. Okay. So we're on the dictionary. Hold on. Zoom in. We're going to go down to the verb roots. We're going to go look for he. So we got a couple, right? So there's he, to fall, to drop, to hit, to get something stuck in your throat. We had to learn that one with some little kids that took too big a bite of an apple. So there's kind of falling. There is one for running, which I think we're getting into now. Falling and running is number 2. So it's not running. And then you do have one for like something to run out, to run to its end. Then you get rise, set, move, or blow. So these are for the wind to blow. This is for there to be a strong wind, for the sun or moon to rise or to set. And then there's one where it's just for something to happen. So you could say it happened, or people did it. And so if I said qunay yakwahih, this is the one that I'm using. Qunay yakwahih. It's getting ready to start. Okay, so coming back to this, we have 2 parts. We have qunay, which means starting, and then yakwahih, it's going to happen. So when you say qunay yakwahih, it's going to start. Right? So qunay yakwahih. Uyéigaa. So we're 40 minutes late today, starting because of me. So what would the tsaatg part perhaps be? What would I say? It's going to start
No.
now. It'll be Ayidat or Yesu. Finally, at long last, tsaatg. Right? So like this is such a great little particle. Like you see someone you haven't seen in a long time. I finally have seen you. Or someone borrows dana, someone borrows some money. And 2 years later they give it back to you. Dana. You finally gave me that money. Right? And then what did I say? So I said, Héen dechwa. I guess you could go like this. You could say tsaatg. We'll put it in quotes. Héen dechwa.
Does it say you're coming back on the salt water?
The salt water's in there. Héen though is sometimes you'll hear it as uyéigaa. Have we heard that one before? Uyéigaa. You could say qunay uyéigaa ashkulch'eta hakustiyichsati. Kune said. Yes, right? This is the verb you use to quote somebody. They said this exact thing, right? And so now we go up a little bit and we had ye yanduqich. So that does change it a little bit, right? the CH and the N are working together in this case to say all the time. All the time. Then you've got de. People always say tsaatg, uyéigaa, on the coast. Daqqa dehua.
In the interior, however,
They say dehua, right? So inland Tlingit don't usually say tsaatg, uyéigaa. They'll say dehua. So this is a dialect thing. So sometimes dialect is like, okay, instead of this sound, you make that sound. That's usually what dialect is. But every now and then you have like a totally different word for the same kind of concept. Or a set of words, maybe. Okay. Now, I think I talked about a couple other things. Why we're late? Huh?
Talked about deer a lot.
I did.
I couldn't piece out what the other parts were.
Hatchokut uwakaan chosatin.
He saw,
Say it again.
he saw deer walking.
That's really close. But if you look at these two verbs, they're both using first person subjects, right? That's what the ch is in there. The ch is a first person subject. Hatchokut uwakaan chosatin.
As I was walking here, I saw a deer.
I got here and saw a deer. Hatchokut. You could say hatchokudi uwakaan chosatin. That would be like when I got here, I saw a deer. Okay? Okay. Question. Tlechoe has chosatin. Now let's just do it simple. Has chosatin ʼatudli.átk. I should name it. Has chosatin uwakaan ʼatudli.átk. Might be a new verb in there. Oh, I think I said Wooch tlech achwatun. Tuqa a'tudli. When I'm not hunting and I see
I'm
it,
not hunting.
go ahead. So tuqa a'tudli would be I feel good. I feel pleasant. Right? Hisaku uwakaan hajich hasati kayek. Might be a new noun in there. Uwakaan hajich hasati kayek. Uwakaan hajich hasati kayek. You know what kayek is? Whatever it is, that's what the deer's given us. Peace. Kayek, right? Peace. So the deer is also a peacemaker. That's why whenever I see one, if I'm not going to try and get one, when I see one, I feel at peace. I feel at ease. Right? And so it was neat. It was right over there. Just walking alongside one of the buildings on campus. Okay. And then I also said I forgot my laptop at home, which is true. It's on my son's desk. And Akshat delivered it. Express delivery. It's very fast. I try not to do that again. I got here and I was like, backpack's light. So, oh no. Maybe it's in my office. Walking in my office, and I knew it. I knew exactly where I left it. You ever do that? You just like put something somewhere and you're like, probably shouldn't put it there.
Yeah.
And then you leave and they're like, where is it? What? It's where I put it, where I shouldn't have put it.
But you brought the ʼatudli,
Mm.
but no laptop.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yuck, A. Really cooking with uwakaan. Uwakaan tin. I'm really cooking with gas. Okay. Any thoughts or questions about anything we've been doing so far? Okay.
In general with verbs or with what was just covered?
Oh, anything at all. Let's get into verbs. So we're going to take when it comes to Tlingit verbs, we're going to take a whole bunch of different approaches with the idea that multiple approaches will probably get us somewhere, right? That's the hope, is that we'll just keep talking about these things. We'll keep looking at some different examples. Sometimes we're looking at all these little components that are in there. Sometimes we're zooming out and just saying, let's look at a little bit of a bigger picture. Because to speak Tlingit, you have to learn how the verbs work. You just kind of have to. Like some people can have done it since birth and they were around Tlingit all the time. I don't fully know how it worked, but I do know I raised kids in Tlingit and they started isolating verb roots and stuff, which I thought was really cool because I never talked to them about grammar, never talked to them about stem variation or anything. But especially when they were very young and we were homeschooling them, and I spoke to them all the time in Tlingit, like they were very accurate translators, like incredibly accurate translators, and they could understand tons. They didn't speak a whole lot of Tlingit. They spoke quite a bit, like when they were really young, like actually a lot. And it was really interesting to see at an early age, especially our oldest, would start translating for her mother all the time, right? And so their mother speaks lots of Tlingit now and understands lots of Tlingit, but at the time, like going back 11 years, and it was tough. It was really tough for me because 11 years ago, I didn't know nearly as much Tlingit as I do now. So I remember I'd just stare at this baby, be like, what am I gonna say to you, baby? And it was just like so challenging, right? It's just like even like in life, I was like, what would I say to a baby anyways, you know? And so it's been really great. But then as we sort of encouraged our friends and sometimes students who would come over to our house and just say, speak to them in Tlingit, see how it goes, right? And some of them would. And so they were walking around with, two of them were walking around with my two daughters. Her son, I think, was just born at the time. And one of our friends said, ʼatudli.átk. Everybody know what that is? ʼatudli.átk. ʼatudli.átk.
I've heard this story before, so I know it.
Yeah, I'm hot, I'm sweaty, right? And so the younger one didn't know what it meant. And so she turned to her older sister and she goes, what's sigh? Right? I was like, oh, she isolated the verb root, right? They told me about it later, and I was like, that was so neat, right? It's because she can hear cow do wa. That's the prefix. But I never told them in their whole life what a prefix is or what a verb root is. They just went right to it. And so that's interesting to me because kids haven't been raised like fully in Tlingit until recently. We had like a 60-year gap. And so nobody really knows how it works anymore because a lot of the elders who can speak and grew up speaking, like, what was it like when you were 2 and you started learning the language, right? It's like going way back. But some of them will certainly share a lot of things about like, but it was also around them. Everybody was speaking. So it's a totally different environment than what we have. So these little blocks say shayech, and that means build it. So everybody say shayech, 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 shayech. So we're going to talk about how verbs get put together, okay? slightly different approach, and then we'll go back to the approach that we were using the other time. And I know we also had a few sentences we're going to translate, which we'll probably do after our break, which we'll get to in probably about 10 minutes. Okay. For me, everything comes down to the prefix and the stem. Those are your two parts of the verb. Sometimes there's a suffix, sometimes there's preverb and postverb stuff, but like this is the heart. This is the stuff you really need to learn how to do. Build a prefix, figure out what the stem's going to be. In the prefix, you have transitivity, right? All that means, is there an object, is there a subject, is there both, is there neither? Those are your four options. And you'll see it in the theme, capital O, capital S, one or the other, neither. If it's not there, you can't add it. If it's there, you can't really take it away. There'll be thematic prefixes, which are nouns built onto verbs. The two most common ones, what are they? Anybody know? Not tle, but tle is one of them. Tle is a nose or a point. Ya, the vertical surface or the face. And ka, like ka is by far the most common prefix. It's a horizontal surface or on something. And sometimes it's not always clear why the ka is on there. Some of them have both, right? And so you'll have yaka, or you'll have them in there. But you're adding a noun to the verb, right? So ka could be in there, ch, walk, guk. You get a jin, which would be j. Chawu, cha could be on there. Sha, sh, right? We can have. We'll go through a list of these, and I'll show you what the main ones are that you need to know and what they mean. Then there's a space for conjugation prefixes. You can have up to 4, like there's these 4 little spots, like a little, what do you call it? Slot machine, right? And you can have these 4 things, and you put them in certain combinations. That's how you get a certain verb mode. Future, ga, ka, every time. Perfective, y, every time, right? And so we'll talk about what these combinations are. But you think about like what the mode requires, then you use those, and then it works in combination with the object, the thematic, those conjugation prefixes, the subject, and the classifier. Those things combined get you your prefix. So what we do is we start learning what the patterns are so we can memorize the patterns. Like you say, kuka is future. Kaki is future or future me. Kaki is future you. Kuka is future them. Right? But then what you start to learn as well as you sort of start to memorize those is what are the things that are in there? Ga, ka, cha. Those 4 things combined gets you kuka. Right? And we will learn those things, right? So that even though Tlingit has a lot of stuff, there's only so many things in there. So what we start to do is figure out like what are the most useful things. I'm gonna, I'm not gonna. You're gonna, you're not gonna. I did, you did. I didn't, you didn't. I am, you are. Those types of things, right? So then there's the classifier. And so the classifier, the most common use for it is to signal that the verb happened. And that's when you go plus I. Say, yep, happened. Did it, know it, whatever the thing is, right? Came to be that way. The classifier also has these 4 groups, and those groups have logical function. Generally being somebody making it that way. The S classifier loves to do categories. The L classifier loves to say it has that thing. Like if you had a hat, and a hat had Mickey Mouse ears, shikuku tsaatg. The hat, the eared hat, I guess you'd say. So shikuk, and you'd have shikuku. Shiwaki, it has eyes. Shijini, it has hands. Shikusi, it has feet or legs. Kushiguz, the weather has clouds, right? And then there's the SH, which kind of means negative thing. It's very rare, but it kind of means things that people don't want or don't want to do. But then there's some of them, but it's not like those are always that way. They're sort of general guidelines of how the meaning works associated with the classifier. Then the stem is two things. The root that contains the meaning, ti is to be, teen is to see or have sight, tseen is strong, chun is stinky or strong smelling. Then the stem is going to tell you what the vowel is. Short and high, long and low. Those are your three options. Any questions about any of that stuff? Okay, we'll learn all the different patterns, the rules, stuff like that. But the intention of this is just to get you to start looking at these things, making some casual predictions about what it might be, and then changing the subject. That's all we're going to change right now is the subject in a set of verbs that allow us to see what it looks like when you say command, right now, was, and then future, right? So we're going to go command, imperfective, perfective, future, with the goal of just like looking at what changes. And then after we sort of look at all of them, then we'll look at a slide to see what are all the pieces that are inside of each one. What's changing in each sort of section. Okay, so this is your cheat sheet on your pronouns for your objects and subjects, so that you're going to sort of change them. And so you could say, ye chet yisane, you did it to me. Ye ichsane, I did it to you. Chet yisaku, you know me. Ichsaku, I know you. We're at Celebration, it's probably 8 years ago, maybe 10, 9. There was an elder from Whitehorse. Her name was Shuwateen. She was Yen Yedi. She was a wonderful speaker of Tlingit. And I saw her walking. I said, Shuwateen, Masa Iati. She was from Tessa. She said, Heshlo Sachatuti wa et deis. Sachtu yek'e, yek'echa echsatini. And then she said, Adusawe wa'ah. And I said, Chone ayachat. Ichsaku, chat yisaku. She said, Ba'uke ijiwu. It was like a wonderful Tlingit conversation, right? So I said, Masa iati. So what did I say to her? How are you? She said, Chat yek'e. 8 days. I said, Achtu yek'e, yek'e echsatini. I feel good. It's good to see you. And then she said, Adu sawe wa'ah. Who are you? I said, Chonei ayachat. Chat yisaku. Ichsaku. I'm Chonei. You know me. I know you. And she said, Qawke ejiwu.
Do you have time? Oh, hearing aids.
Do you have hearing aids? Boom. It's an amazing thing. I was like, ejite kakwasain. Yes, I'll give you some. Okay. So like this stuff, this is how you communicate. I think you unlock this stuff, but we just keep looking at it. It starts to make sense. I do think it does. Okay, so looking at the subjects, cha, tu, I, ye, 0, du. So your only options for subjects for all time, forever. You'll never have more than that. I, we, you, y'all, they, someone. Our focus here is on cha, I, 0, right? I, you, they. Those are the three we're going to look at. We're not going to look at more. We'll look at those later. We'll add complexity once we start to figure out some of these basic patterns. So what we're looking for is, what is the classifier doing? Which one is it? And this will show us how to predict what the classifier is going to be. Once you know the group, you'll know what it's going to be in these modes, which is when you're getting started, positive perfectives and imperfective state verbs are plus I. That's it. Everything else is minus I. Everything else. Future is going to be 0. It's right here. Or it's going to be tla. It's going to be sa. right? We'll see how this changes. We'll just look at examples, see how it works in these verbs. Everybody okay? Any questions? Need anything? Here's our first one. Everybody say cha, cha, cha. Why is there a little number 1 on it?
First variation.
What's that?
The first variation of the stem.
Well, yeah, there's a homonym, right? There's another cha. Anybody know what the other cha is? Do you know what a cha? Say it again.
Maybe a pod, maybe?
There is a noun for a pod of killer whales or for a fleet of boats, and that is cha. Kit cha is a pod of killer whales, and cha is a war party. Like, that's very thinking. Like, what do you call a canoe? Yak. What do you call 2 canoes? War party, right? So it's like. But cha, so you would say, ʼatudli.átk. We paddled. Right? So paddling is the second one. Acha is a noun from a verb.
Oh.
Okay, but this one, we're just looking at this one, which is to eat. Okay, so if we look at eating, this is what the theme looks like. We're just going to become readers of the verb theme. Capital O, there's an object. You cannot forget that there's an object there. Mostly because when you switch it to third person, you're going to throw the right in front of it. Okay, there's a subject that's going to go, in this case, zero. That third person subject is forever unmarked. You never put a pronoun there. It takes a while to get used to. Your English brain will be like, something has to go there. They are doing it. You're like, no. It's a zero group classifier. Means we should expect all of them to be 0, except for the perfective, which will be ya. And we'll see what it looks like when it changes shape. Cha. And then it tells us this is an 0-act verb. The most important thing here is this 0. That means for a command, we should expect cha, eat it. Right? And then it's going to tell us this plus this is going to tell us when we move it into a different mode, what's it going to be. Because it's 0 and this is open, the perfective should be long and high every time. Open, 0, long and high. Na, ga, and qa, long and low every time. That's just how it works, right? So that's the secret. We did talk about stem variation a little bit, but I just kept saying, don't worry about it, don't worry about it. Now, start to think about it, but still don't worry about it. Okay. Again, 0 means there's usually some end point. Na means it's some ongoing type of thing. It doesn't mean it goes forever. It just means there's no specified ending. Ga is upwards, qa is downward. Every verb will have one of these. It'll have a conjugation type. That won't change unless it's a motion verb. Then it will change. So here is the classifier options. It's a 0 group, so it's going to be 0 or ya. The only time it'll be ya is for a positive perfective. I ate it, you ate it, they ate it. Those will all be ya. All the others will be 0. So what this shows, this table, going on the top, first person, second person, third person. Cha, 0. On the left-hand side, I gotta tell you something. I once had someone come and visit my classroom. They decided to write everything on the board. And so as I was looking through the Zoom meeting, this was in the early days of using Zoom. for me. I did not know that it acts like a mirror. So when I looked at my screen, everything that this person wrote was backwards. So I found a way to flip it over so it was forwards. But for everybody who watched it, it was backwards. And they never said anything about it. Okay. So on the left-hand side, you have do it, doing it, did it, will do it. Your classifier will be 0, 0, yeah, 0. Would anybody like to predict how to say eat it as a command? Yeah, or what? Everybody say cha,
Ha.
cha,
Ha.
cha,
Ha.
cha.
Ha.
Okay. So let me tell you something about the imperfective. The prefix is easy to predict because there's no conjugation stuff in there, right? There's nothing. There's not a perfective marker. There's no ga type of stuff. There's nothing there. But the trade-off is the stem, as far as we know, is unpredictable. So as you learn a verb, one of the things you have to remember, if it has an imperfective, what is the stem? So I will tell you, it is short and high for this one. So now, because we have, this one's going to have a first person subject, which is going to sound like what? If I'm doing it. Cha. And there's going to be an object there, but it's unmarked. There's going to be a classifier there, but it's also unmarked. It's a 0. And then you're going to get to the root, which in this, the stem is going to be short and high. So what would you expect for I am eating it? Yeah or what? Ha ha.
Ha.
Ha ha.
Ha.
Ha ha.
Ha.
Ha ha.
Ha.
Now we're going to have, if we go through, we should be expecting 0, 0, cha. But in that case, for whatever reason, when you have and then a 0 classifier, you're going to have e. It's just going to go long. This is consistent, though.
Which one of these do we have any perfectives or are we?
We're going to perfectives next line down.
Okay. I was gonna shush.
So, if we're going to change the cha to I, and it's going to go long, but this once we've got this stem, it's going to be cha all the way across. Even if we did we're eating, y'all are eating, they all are eating, people are eating, that wouldn't change the stem at all for this one. So how about you are eating it? Yeah or what? Icha.
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 So what's going to happen? So, okay, so we've got these parts, right? So there's an object there, there's a subject, there's a classifier, there's the stem. Those are the 4 things. The stem is going to be cha. Now, if we're going to put the third person there, what is going to happen? I'm not asking you to just tell me what it is, but just what are the things that are going to change? We just went from cha to I.
Subject is going to become a.
The subject will be 0 forever and always. Whenever a third person does it, it's like, Like if we use this for English, we'd be like, I'm eating, you're eating, eating. It would just sound incomplete.
The object will be 0.
The object will change from 0 to
A.
a. So then we're going to actually get a, 0, 0, cha, which then we end up with what? Aha. Yeah, a what? Aha. 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 They are eating it. Okay. We'll get to the futures and we'll take our break. I promise. Okay. So now what's going to happen? When we switch it to a perfective, this is what happens. In the conjugation spot, y has to be activated. So now you're going to get 0, y, cha, ya. Because it's a 0 open, you're going to have cha, long and high. Here's a very consistent rule when it comes to both the perfective marker and something else that we call the irrealis, is that when you have y plus cha, you get hua. It jumps over to the other side. Okay? And then when you get y plus cha plus ya, you get hua. Underline X, W, A, A.
I'm sorry, will you say that again, both of them?
Yes. Okay. You'll see it, like, I'll show you things that shows you all the little parts that are on. Okay, so when you have a perfective positive, you have to have the perfective marker there, y. It's got to pop up in this spot, right? In between, it goes object, thematic, conjugation, that's where it goes, subject, classifier, then you get to the stem. So what you end up with is 0, y, cha, ya, because now the classifier has switched to plus I. So if you had just y plus cha, it does an interesting thing where it jumps over and becomes hua. But if you have y plus cha plus ya, you get hua. So what happens is it jumps over and it eats the y. I don't know how, but it does. But once you have, for now, even though there's a lot here, any 0 classifier verb is going to be hua. I did it. Hua good. I'll think of other ones, but we're not going to go too far. But so if it's going to be hua, and I told you that the stem will be long and high, how would I say I ate it? Hua cha, hua cha, hua cha, hua cha. Yuck. With the second person, you have 2 options for a perfective prefix. Okay, so what you're going to get is 0 for the object, y for the conjugation, I for the subject, ya for the classifier. So there's going to be a bunch of these rules where you're going to hear there's 0 and there's everything else. Not like we just said, a 0 conjugation verb that's open, the verb root ends in a vowel, it will be long and high. Everything else will be long and low. For this prefix, I will just tell you, it's going to be iya for 0 conjugation verbs. All the others will be ye. This is why you would say, wei de ye good. You went over there. Neich iya gut. You came inside. Because the first one is na conjugation, the second one is 0. This is a lot. I know it's a lot. Verbs have a lot of moving parts. You are all very smart people. We're getting it one chunk at a time. I told you it's going to be iya. So how would I say you ate it? Ye owe. Iyacha. 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 Hey. So the same, like we've added y, so now we're going to get a, y, 0, ya, cha. So this is how Tlingit sound math works, is you go a, y, 0, ya, that gives you awa. Awa. So how would I say they ate it? Yeah, awa. Awacha, awacha, awacha. Should we take a break before we do the future?
But can we first break down awa and how that gets to awa in the notes? Like,
Yes.
break it apart.
Yes.
Administration.
Well, okay, if we do the futures, then I'll show you the slide that reveals all the little parts
Oh,
of it.
okay, I can wait, I can wait.
Okay. So when you have 0, for every future, you must have in that conjugation spot, right? For every perfective, you have to have y. For every future, you have to have g, ka. Those 3 things. Doesn't matter what they mean. All that matters is like, oh, you put these 3 lights on, you got a future every single time. And every future verb has to have those 3 things. So when you have 0 for the object, g, ka for the conjugation, and then you have cha, the classifier has to be 0, you're going to get kuka. Kuka. And let me tell you about future verbs. Every future verb, the stem wants to be long and high. Every single time. Doesn't matter about the conjugation prefix whatsoever. They are all long and high. So, if it's kuka, and then it's long and high, what should we expect for I will eat it? Yay, well. Kukacha, kukacha, kukacha. Yeah, well. So all those pieces have to stay there. 0, ga, ka. But now cha will change to I, just like it did above. So if you have 0, ga, ka, I, and in this case a 0, the 0 classifier, it goes from kuka to kaki. And then kaki, the second vowel has to be long. So how would I say you are going to eat it? Yeah, away. Kaqicha, kaqicha, kaqicha. So now what happens? Same thing. The subject goes to 0. Now the object goes to They work together in this case. Third person, it's got to change to . So the third person on its own, you just have ga, ka, which a lot of times without an object would be guka. But because that object is there, you get akwa. Akwa. And the stem will stay the same. So how would I say they are going to eat it? Akwacha, akwacha, akwacha. Okay. So now that we've done all of these, all 10 of these, this is what the parts are. Okay? So this one, this one has 2, sorry. Where it does get a little tricky is you have multiple 0 markers in there. This first one is the conjugation prefix. This second one is the classifier. For commands, you usually don't have a pronoun there. You just go straight to the verb. It's an interesting thing. For some reason, even though you're telling a second person to do it, There's usually not a pronoun there. So then when we drop down to the imperfective, 0, cha, 0, cha. In this case, 0 object, cha subject, 0 classifier. But then if we look over, the only thing we are changing is the subject. Cha to I to 0. When you switch I to 0, that triggers the object to now change to a. And even though that's kind of a lot, if you look down, we added perfective, we added ga, ka, but those other things stay the same. 0 cha, 0 cha, 0 cha. 0 I, 0 I, 0 I. 0 0 0. So what you see is that conjugation stuff, that's where the magic happens. And then there'll be contraction, and then we start by memorizing what those prefixes are, but then we understand what those parts are, so we could change them mechanically in our brain. That's when we start getting into rules. Down here, y, cha, ya will always equal hua. That's just how it works. Y, I, ya. For all 0 conjugation verbs will be iya. For na, ga, and qa, it'll be yi. Yi saku. Okay? Y, 0, ya. So the 0 it doesn't factor in at all. So you could just say y plus ya is wa. Then you throw this, you get the so you get awa, awa. When you get down to the future, there's a couple of additional sort of things I wanted to just point out. If you take this A away, if you drop that because it contracts, one of the things that can happen in contraction is that A will just get dropped. If you drop that A, that G turns into a K. Just like we saw, like when you had something like, if you were possessing something that ended with a K, right? Like you say yag, yag, right? So we see the exact same type of thing happening here. So if you take that vowel out, then you could sort of, if you wanted to really get into theories, you could say that's a K. You just add a vowel there so you can get to the next sound. This letter U does have meaning. It just means there's a disconnect from reality. Either it hasn't happened yet or it hasn't happened, right? Or it's not really that way. With this qa, there's a couple of different things to know. And we'll keep talking about this. We talk about this a lot in advanced Tlingit. We're just introducing these as concepts. Qa plus kha will equal qa. That's pretty common. But if you cut that vowel out of qa, it's going to turn into kh, which is why. You would expect it to go to an underlined K, but it won't. It'll go to kh. And we'll see examples of that. It doesn't happen in any of these examples we've looked at.
So when does it turn into huh? Like, I guess just like say it again.
If you take that letter A out of there, out of qa, it will turn into kh. Okay, how's everybody doing?
Well, before I ask my question, you promised the class break before we even got to the last line.
Okay, let's take a 6-minute break, then we'll come back for the last 20 minutes. This is a lot, but this unlocks the whole Tlingit language, I guarantee. I don't know what the guarantee is. It's just a verbal guarantee.
You're like the rest of us were like, we don't give no.
Okay, let's do a little check-in. How's everybody doing?
The rest of your class hasn't returned.
Yeah, long break. It's
Scared
okay.
them.
It's a lot of information to go through, right? And I think because we're starting to move multiple parts at the same time now, it could be a little bit dazzling, I guess, intimidating maybe. But it starts to make a lot of sense. Like, there's so much logic in the Tlingit language. Like it's all there, it's all these parts, but it's just a matter of what they do and then what happens when they start interacting with each other. So this gets us to talking about futures, right? So for some futures, you're going to have different options. And for one of those options, for example, these are both futures of the same verb, the to be verb, but you can say it like you'll hear the difference between these two. So everybody say, yekwati,
Yekwati.
yekwati,
Yekwati.
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 You've been in dance groups, you've probably been saying this your whole life, right?
Yeah.
You didn't even know you were doing a ga thing. You've been doing it this whole time. You've been ga this whole time. Look at this. Now it changes. On yahkukati. On yahkukati. On yahkukati. So why are those different? They're the same verb. One is
One's vowel and one's closed at the end, the preverb, I guess.
yes.
And one's open. One ends with the vowel and one ends with the consonant.
Absolutely. So the vowel will trigger contraction. This is one of the things. And so we've got this yekwati and yachkukati. But I'm going to put something up here. Hold on. So for the first person, we said kuka, right? That's I am gonna. But if there's a vowel before it, you're going to end up with kukwa, right? Because what happens is you have g, qa. So what Tlingit does is says, okay, g, qa, kha, too many things. Something has to contract. So what contracts is g. The A falls out and changes to a K. That U is still there, k, and then qa plus kha is qa. So we see it happening right there. That's how you get kuka. But then if there's a vowel introduced, what will happen is it will get rid of this U, but when it disappears, it actually jumps across to the other side. Just like we saw in hua, right? These are just things that happen. This is how Tlingit contracts. There's a lot of moving parts, but it's all highly predictable. So then we see this one, guqa becomes kukwa. Same process happens, right? In this case, this contracts by jumping to the other side, and that G turns into a K. So for the second person, we have qaqi, but if qaqi contracts, it's going to follow a very similar pattern. What do you think it might contract to? Good guess, but in this case, the W just disappears. Okay? Could be. Yes. Right? And we'll get to it could be short, it could be long. Do you want to know right now or do you want to know later? No. No? Okay, you don't have to remember this. If there's a vowel in the classifier, it will be short. If there's not, it will be long.
Sorry, could you say that again?
Yes. Okay, let me actually duplicate this. Okay.
That's all I remember.
So
It's short.
Will be.
we have gucky, and then you have to have consonant vowel. That's the way it's short. Because otherwise, you'll have guk. Oops, sorry, that should be underlined. Gucky with only a consonant or a zero, right? Now it got too long.
Okay, but could you please just re-say, if there's a vowel in the classifier, then
It's short.
gonna sheesh.
If there's not, it's long. There's one more that doesn't. What would this be? How would this translate? Like as a prefix. Gachtu.
We will.
We will, right? So you have ga, ga, t. So the t cannot contract. Ga, so the one that contracts here is ga. Take the vowel out, turns into an underline X, just like we talked about. Gachtu. So this one, if there's a vowel in the classifier, it's short. If there's not, it's long. It's a consistent rule for both of these. Gaqi, gachtu. Okay. Yes. Maybe I shouldn't put this vowel thing in.
What does
Trying to find it easy. Okay, what if I did this? So here I said vowel in classifier and no vowel. This may be there's a method here, maybe.
What does gachtusane mean?
We will do it. Yegachtusane. We will do it.
So that's an example of like a vowel, or I mean a verb using gachtu.
Yes, right? So if the verb here is ye, ka, ki, sa, ne, you will do it, right? So this we see vowel in the classifier. We also see vowel in the preverb. So that's causing contraction and keeping this vowel here short. So we should predict ye, gach, tu, sa, ne. We will do it.
Are futures never plus I?
No. Only perfectives and imperfective state verbs. We'll start there.
So like it would never be like ye gachtusine.
No, cannot say that. Every future positive or negative must be minus I because it hasn't happened. That's what plus I marks, is that it has happened, it became that way. That's why we go plus I. There is an exception to that, which is potentials. Might be that way, might not be that way, can't be that way. For whatever reason, those are plus I. Don't worry about those right now. Just remember, to start understanding how the classifier works, plus I means it happened or became that way. You can.
With gachtu and gachtu, is it the same rule as gaki and kagi?
Yes.
It's long if there's not a vowel?
No vowel, long, vowel, short. Yes, for both of them. Right, so we see them both here short, right? So then if we said, gakicha, you're going to eat it. Gach, tu, cha, we're going to eat it. No vowel in the classifier, they both got to be long. They both follow that same rule. They're the only ones that follow that rule. If you say gachtu, it's got to be short every time. Gachtu cannot go long. Gachtu is someone is going to, people are going to. Okay. Okay, good stuff. Just like wandering around the deep waters of the lake, looking at the roots of the ʼatudli, of the pond lily. There's medicine in that root. Okay, look at one more verb. To drink. To drink it. Okay? So here's what it looks like. Im tells you everything you need to know to use the verb. There is an object. There is a subject. They cannot go anywhere. This says D plus 0. That means you have two options for the classifier. Anybody know what those two options are? Yep, da and di. It's always going to be da. Unless it happens, then it'll be di. It's na. This is another 0. That means in the perfective, the stem should be what? Remember that?
Short and high.
No. Long and high, yes, yes, right? We'll get it, right? We'll get it. For any open stem, perfective 0, long and high. Na, ga, or ka, long and low. Chwacha, I ate it. Chwata, I slept. Okay. So your classifier, da or di. Those are your two options. That's all you got. We go in here, the command, da. Doing it, da. Did it, did. Future, da. Okay? Same sort of system. The di will be there for the perfective. Okay? So, for command form, like I put command forms in here, but I think worry about those later. Like just kind of memorize them for now, right? Cha, eat it. This one, you're going to have da, and you're going to have na. It's going to be short and high. Yes, because if the classifier is plus D, so coming back to this classifier chart, if these bottom ones are plus D, if the classifier is plus D, the command form must have the second person pronoun. The others won't. So if you're going to tell someone to eat it, that's a 0. So you just say cha. That's the whole verb. But because this one has a plus D, you'll say itana. So you have to put the I in there. Do you want to know why?
Yeah.
If a prefix has a consonant, it has to have a vowel. It cannot only have a consonant. So this prevents that from happening. Okay, so how do you command someone, drink it? Yeah, away. Itana. 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 For this one,
It didn't.
dana is going to be all the way across for the imperfectives. You're gonna have da and na, just like that. It's going to be short and high. Yes.
I'm sorry, could you repeat the part you mentioned a second ago about prefixes not having vowels? Could you explain that rule again or
Okay.
repeat it for me?
If the prefix has a consonant,
Okay.
it must also have a vowel. It cannot only have a consonant. And so when we get to the classifier, going back to the classifier, the plus D classifier, right? So da and di, no problem, right? They both have vowels. It's not a big deal. But if you look at the other ones, z, gle, sh, j, sh. Those plus D versions, when you go plus D minus I on those, it is only a consonant. So you'd say shtu kukqushtu. The letter L is the classifier. Have we reached a saturation point?
How come those ones don't have vowels?
They're just built that way. That's a good question. Yeah. Okay, so what I would say, I guess I would say the minus I version is what that classifier is. And you can add the letter I to it. But for some reason like that also turns the letter D on. Like it's z, s. So you could say shchwadzitine, I see myself. You could say shkakquastin, I will see myself on the Zoom camera thing. With the letters flipped over backwards. Okay. Okay, Johan. Goodness cheese. It makes sense over time. Like you will have a point in your life where you look back and be like, man, I remember you looking at this chart. Didn't make any sense. Now I know it all. Well, I know everything on that chart. Anything before we go?
I put those classifiers on that one thing that we played like last year. What's it called? Where you can like match. Not Kahoot. A Quizlet.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to memorize them, play the matching game.
Okay.
Classifier.
Sheesh. Okay. Dalkonya Gikana. Yewushkachtustin. See that plus D minus I classifier right there. Yewushkachtustin. We will see each other on Thursday. It's gonna happen.
So is that why when it's like yéigaa, it's not what was the other form?
Kukka.
Yeah, kuka.
It's the yay that pushes
the
it.
yay. So it reduces the ga vowel because there's a vowel before it. There just needs to be a vowel on either side, so it gets pushed to the other one.
Yes, it's
And it
kukka.
shortens it.
It's kukka. That's what it's
starting
forming.
to make sense.
But that vowel says
It's
now you
starting
gotta
to make
contract.
sense.
And then things will contract in certain orders.
Oh
That
my
ga.
goodness.
That ga is it's like, I'll drop a vowel. It's like one of the first ones to do it. You guys are so smart. You're getting it. Jeez.
No, it's not about me, it's about us. Us.
Yeah, no, the class is very intelligent.
Us.
That was,
Kuning. We'll continue this slideshow next time.
yes. Okay.
Okay.
A whole
Just gonna
sets of
drop it
then we
and
do go
forget it?
negative, and then it, yeah.
Glitch, clean.
You